It's over, Raphael. You've lost.
When you think of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you picture an unbreakable brotherhood. 4 fiercely loyal siblings, guided by the wisdom of their rat father, fighting in perfect synchronization. They're disciplined, heroic, and bound by a strict ninja code. But what happens when you take the raw mutated power of a turtle and strip away the discipline, the family, and the sanity? That's where Slash comes in. To call Slash the 5th turtle would be a massive understatement and frankly an insult to his terrifying legacy. He isn't just another mutant, he's the ultimate anti-turtle. Visually striking with his jagged spiked shell, posing physical mass, and his black bandana, Slash was designed to be a walking nightmare for our heroes in a half-shell. But why did the creators feel the need to introduce such an erratic oddball into a perfectly balanced dynamic? Originally conceptualized by TMNT co-creator Kevin Eastman and brought to life alongside the creative minds behind the classic Playmates toy line and Archie Comics, Slash was born to be the ultimate dark counterpart. The creators wanted to introduce a villain who wasn't just another bumbling mutant henchman, but a terrifying twisted reflection of the turtles themselves. They wanted to explore a terrifying what-if scenario. What if a mutant turtle didn't have Splinter's guidance? What if instead of eating pizza and cracking jokes, a mutant was driven to pure unbridled aggression, psychological instability, and a tragic sense of isolation? Slash was brought to life to be the ultimate foil, an unpredictable wildcard who forces the brothers to face the sheer, terrifying potential of their own mutant nature. He's a brute force that cannot be reasoned with, making him arguably the most powerful and dangerous Ninja Turtle to ever roam the sewers. His journey, however, is far from a simple villain of the week story. It's a chaotic, heartbreaking, and hyper-violent saga that spans across different dimensions, comic iterations, and animated universes. How did a seemingly mindless, palm tree-obsessed brute evolve into one of the most complex and tragic figures in TMNT history? And when it comes down to a brutal, no-holds-barred clash of survival, why is Slash the one mutant the brothers truly fear? Strap in, because we're about to dive deep into the chaotic, tragic, and utterly brutal life of the most powerful Ninja Turtle ever created.
And Slash fights with brain power.
Slash's early origin. In the beginning of time... No, wait, we went too far. Slash's first appearance was in Season 4, Episode 18, in an episode titled Slash, the Evil Turtle from Dimension X. Originally, Slash was a regular pet turtle of Bebop, Shredder's lackey, but if you know Bebop and Rocksteady, you know that on most occasions these two are good-for-nothing losers. When Shredder asked them to clean the lower decks of the Technodrome, they decided to go with a quick-fix shortcut, and what they chose to do led to the birth of Slash, the 5th turtle. Bebop and Rocksteady simply didn't want to do all that hard work, and that's when Bebop revealed his pet turtle to his dim-witted, rhinoceros-esque friend. The two of them needed someone to do their chores, so they stole their master's tech to mutate the turtle, and before you know it, the regular old turtle transformed, or mutated, into an anthropomorphic turtle, just like our 4 favorite green-skinned mutants. But as you may know, Slash was always about palm trees, and in this first incarnation, he was totally obsessed with a plastic palm tree that he called Blinky. Like, he loved it. He was obsessed with it, and he was willing to go to any extent to keep it safe. After becoming a giant turtle, he serves Bebop and Rocksteady because they had his Blinky. Unfortunately, however, they drop it into an air duct, which naturally pisses Slash off. Next thing we know, he's going berserk and stealing 2 of Shredder's Shaolin swords before chasing the mutated pig and rhino across the length and breadth of the Technodrome. The 2 would have ended up on the wrong side of Slash's blades had they not tricked the turtle into entering a portal, which is how Slash ended up on Earth. You see, he was told that his Blinky was here on Earth, but that was just a lie. Anyways, once there, he runs into this super resourceful but equally corrupt businessman named Fenton Q. Hackenbush, whose grand idea was to build luxury condos in the sewers, which naturally meant that the Ninja Turtles would lose their home. But more importantly, the city would be robbed of its sewers. Previously, the Turtles had thwarted his plans, and he needed a way to get rid of them. He couldn't kill them, of course, because it's a kids' show, so he instead decided to tarnish their image and reputation. This is where Slash came into the picture. Fenton learns about Slash's obsession with palm trees and offers him hundreds of those, which naturally gets Slash super interested in Fenton's plan. Now, this guy asks Slash to go to the Freedom Bell, the city's most loved spot and a patriotic landmark, and asks him to destroy it, which would ultimately give the Turtles a bad name, and he does exactly that. The Ninja Turtles do learn about the plan and try to stop him, but he beats the hell out of all 4 of them. Oh, and we almost forgot, Slash loved pizza. like pizza was shown to be his only weakness in this episode, apart from his own stupidity, of course. Now, after doing what he was told, Slash returns to Fenton, who was live on a Channel 6 interview, and since Fenton didn't want to be seen in cahoots with an evil alien turtle from Dimension X, he refuses to honor the deal he made with Slash, which pisses off the evil Ninja Turtle, who ends up stealing Fenton's rocket. The Turtles know that if the rocket crashes, there would be mass casualties, so they follow him, and after a series of strange and unfortunate incidents, Slash was finally sent into space on that same rocket. The only silver lining for him was that he managed to find a small plastic palm tree on the rocket. In the end, he returns to the Technodrome through a trans-dimensional portal where he unleashes thousands of tons of trash from the rocket onto Krang and Shredder. The next time we saw him was in the Season 6 episode titled Donatello Trashes Slash. Prior to this episode, we knew Slash as an absolutely silly turtle, right? But by the time he reappeared in Season 6, he was all smart, a super genius, to say the least. It turns out that during the course of his journey across the stars on Fenton's spaceship, he came across an alien race of highly intelligent beings who felt pity for Slash because of how dumb he was, and they decided to give him a genius-level intellect, and not only that, but for some reason, he also got a British accent. It was the 90s, that's how smart people sounded, okay? He returned to Earth and continued with his own brand of justice, intending to turtleize the world, which was, of course, a play on the word terrorize. In other words, he wanted to use his ray gun on humans and transform them into turtles so he could become their overlord, but thankfully, the turtles stopped him, and after one eventful fall from the roof of Channel 6, he turned back into his normal stupid self, after which the Turtles sent him back to space. In the original series, he also appeared as a minor antagonist in the episode titled Night of the Rogues, as a part of Shredder's bunch of henchmen hired to defeat the Turtles, but he left because the payment he was supposed to receive didn't come through.
No! Get off of him!
2012 series makes him a brute force, but not the silly kind. Now, if you've seen the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, then you already know this version of Slash is very different. Not in a new design, same character way, but in a this is personal sort of way. And honestly, the whole thing starts in a place you wouldn't expect, with a tiny pet turtle named Spike. Raphael found him after he got flushed into the sewers, which first of all is a pretty rough start to life. But anyways, Raph takes him in, feeds him some lettuce leaves, which Spike loves, and more importantly, he talks to him. And I mean full-on emotional venting. Spike becomes Raph's sounding board, kind of like a mute therapist if there was ever such a thing. You see, Raph isn't the type to open up to his brothers. He doesn't want to look soft, and yeah, you can already imagine Leo raising an eyebrow or Mikey cracking a joke. So instead, he talks to Spike, and Spike, being a turtle who cannot speak, listens. No judgment, no interruptions, nothing. As we said, mute therapist. The brothers tease him for it, of course, but Raph doesn't care. He plays with Spike, lets him sit on his shoulder, and even treats him like a person half the time. Now, here's where things get interesting, and we'll pause for a second here because this part is important. In this universe, mutation works by combining DNA, so whoever or whatever you last interacted with, that DNA mixes in. Raphael got his traits from Splinter, and when Spike mutates later, he gets his human side from Raph. Now, in the episode Slash and Destroy, Donatello has one of his mutagen experiments in the lab, and it explodes. Spike is standing on a crate during all of this, and Raph, without thinking twice, dives in and saves him right before the crate gets destroyed. After that, Raph is furious. He blames Donnie, grabs the mutagen canister, and storms off to his room with Spike. Now, Raph gets called back out to help clean up the mess, which he's not happy about. He goes on a rant about how it's not even his fault, and then Splinter steps in and shuts him down with a pressure point. Meanwhile, back in Raph's room, the canister gets knocked over when the door slams, and mutagen spills all over the floor. Spike sees it and heads for it, almost like he knows something's about to change. By the time Raph gets back, Spike is gone, and in his place, a 7-foot mutant turtle who can talk and who calls himself Slash. At first, Raph feels like he got exactly what he wanted. Someone who understands him, someone loyal, someone who doesn't question him. Slash sticks with Raph, and the two even decide to work together, but there's a catch. The mutation didn't just make Slash stronger and smarter, it messed with his mind. Quietly, without Raphael realizing it, Slash starts forming his own plan. He decides that Leonardo, Donatello, and Michelangelo are a problem, or in his own words, dead weight. In his mind, they only hold Raph back, so naturally, his solution is to remove them. The Turtles decide to split up to search for more mutagen canisters. Raph and Slash go off on their own, and while Raph thinks they're on a mission, Slash goes off script. He finds Donatello, attacks him brutally, and takes his purple mask as a trophy. Mikey runs into them soon after, already worried because Donnie's missing, and he meets Slash and realizes it's Spike, and for a moment there's confusion. But Slash doesn't care about that and tells Raph to forget his brothers and focus on their goal. Raph refuses while making it clear to Slash that his brothers come first, and that's when Slash snaps and goes after Mikey, but Raph comes to his brother's rescue and pushes Slash away before trying to level with him. Slash even says he doesn't want to fight Raph. He asks him to step aside and let him finish Mikey, and that right there is when it clicks for Raph. This isn't Spike anymore, not in the way he knew him. So Raph uses a smoke bomb, grabs Michelangelo, and escapes. They regroup, find Donnie injured, and confirm what we already know. Slash is behind it all. While Raph tends to Donnie, Mikey hears Leo's voice calling him, except it's not Leo, it's Slash pretending to be him. And of course, Mikey walks right into the trap. Slash attacks him, takes his orange mask, and leaves him in a bad way. It doesn't take Raph long to find Mikey, see the damage, and finally confront Slash directly. He asks him why, and Slash's answer is simple in his head. The brothers are unnecessary, they hold Raph back. Raph's an angry guy, but he rejects that notion completely, and Slash, who still wants Raph on his side, decides that if Raph won't agree, then maybe he needs to force him to change, and the next thing we know, they're fighting each other. This fight gets intense. Slash has the upper hand for most of it. He overwhelms Raph, nearly beats him down completely, and even when Donnie and Mikey try to help, Slash puts them out of the fight again. But Raph doesn't stay down. He gets back up and says something important here, that friends protect each other, and he would rather be like his brothers than like Slash. The fight spills into a little girl's bedroom. Yeah, there's this whole side situation with Leo trying to get a mutagen canister from her, and he has to have a tea party with this kid and everything, but that's a story for another day. Slash goes all in, pushing Raph to the edge of a building and almost finishes him off. Leo comes in, however, and asks what's going on, and Slash uses that distraction to attack Leo from behind. This was clearly something he wanted to do for a while because he hated Leo and his antics most of all. Raph pulls his weapons, ready to end this, and Slash actually likes that. To him, this proves they're alike, that anger makes them strong. But then, Raphael remembers Splinter's lesson. Instead of giving in to that anger, he uses skill. He hits a pressure point on Slash's arm, partially paralyzes him, and takes the mask Slash had collected. Slash loses his balance and falls off the rooftop, disappearing into the night, but Raph knows he's still out there somewhere. Now, if you look at his character arc, even before his mutation, Spike listened to everything Raph said. He absorbed it. After mutation, that turned into obsession, and the evil kind, no less. Slash believed he needed to remove anything that held Raph back, even if that meant hurting Raph himself. In his mind, that's what a true warrior should be. But yeah, Slash wasn't all bad, because in episodes like Neutralized, Slash draws a line. He doesn't agree with killing innocents or allies to achieve a goal, which puts him at odds with the neutralizer. He even reconnects with Raphael, helping to take down his former partner, and then chooses to leave, deciding to work alone for a while. Then, in Battle for New York, he goes even further down the path of good when he openly admits that his earlier behavior came from the mutagen affecting his mind. He feels regret. So yeah, this version of Slash started out all evil, but didn't remain that way for long. Comic book evolution of Slash. Number 1. Archie Comics Slash wouldn't shy away from making the ultimate sacrifice for revenge. So with the Archie Comics version of Slash, things take a bit of a turn. And by a bit, I mean we go from a weird pet-turned-mutant situation to something more grand. But we've got to admit, the whole thing is a bit sad too. In this version, Slash didn't start in New York. He used to live alone on a planet called Playmates, and yeah, as you can imagine, it was a paradise filled with lush green palm trees, which is basically his entire personality. You give this version of Slash some palm trees and he's happy. It doesn't take much. But, of course, that peace doesn't last long. Workers from another planet called Vertmort arrive, and they didn't come to sightsee. They strip Playmates of its trees to build a mansion for their president, and we're not even going to pretend that's not tragic. They take the one thing Slash cares about and wipe it out completely. So naturally, Slash snaps. He kills the lumberjacks, and when he still doesn't get his trees back, he goes on a rampage. He targets authority figures across the galaxy, and eventually this gets him captured, and he's sentenced to a permanent exile on the planet Morbus. This is where things start to connect back to familiar territory. On Morbus, Slash meets Krang, who's also banished. The two make a deal. Slash will help Krang return to Earth, and in return, he gets direction and maybe even a sense of purpose. Under Krang's leadership, Slash joins hands with Belly Bomb, and together they fight the Turtles while Krang looks for a new body specifically Shredder's. But hey, this alliance doesn't define him for long, and you know you were expecting it. Later in the story, Slash goes on another rampage, this time in New York, where he gets captured and imprisoned, and this part's kind of ironic. Leatherhead steps in to subdue him, but after that, something interesting happens. The mutanimals calm him down enough to actually talk, and Slash explains what happened to him. He tells them that he crashed on Earth, ended up in New York, and only stopped his rampage after he destroyed a pet shop and found a small fake palm tree inside a terrarium, and he didn't even care that it was plastic. That's how desperate he was for a palm tree. The mutanimals then offer him a place on their island, which is full of palm trees. Real ones, this time. And that's enough. Slash accepts, wanders off into the trees, and becomes their ally. For a while, things even seem kind of normal, but then the mutanimals get ambushed and gunned down by Null's group of cyborgs called the Gang of Four. Slash wasn't there when this all went down, which, yeah, was lucky for him, but it was going to make him all the angrier. We were picturing the Hound from Game of Thrones after his village of common folks was plundered by a few rogue men from the Brotherhood without banners. Basically, it was time to kick some ass. When the Turtles, along with Ninjara and future versions of Donatello and Raphael, start investigating, Slash sees them and assumes the worst. He thinks they're responsible and attacks them. It takes Candy jumping in and convincing him otherwise to calm down, but once he learns the truth, Slash joins the investigation, and when the Gang of Four openly admits they killed the mutanimals, Slash goes into a rage. This time, though, it isn't blind. He fights, and with some help, he takes down the killers of his friends, but even that doesn't end things. He learns that Null and Maligna were behind the attack, so his revenge isn't complete. He tracks them down to Maligna's mobile hive world, along with the others, and they all confront the Insectoid Queen and her forces. At this point, the Turtles and the others rescue Candy and start to retreat, and Slash, well, he stays. He knows that if the fight ends too soon, Maligna could regain control of the ship, so he holds her off alone. While the others escape, he keeps her forces occupied. The Turtles watch from their ship as the hive world falls into the sun. Yeah, there's no twist here. Slash goes down with it, but in doing so, he stops Maligna, wipes out the Malignoids, and finally avenges the mutanimals. Naturally, it's not hard to deduce that this version of Slash starts off angry, gets pulled into bigger conflicts, and finds a place where he belongs before losing it and then making sure the people responsible don't get away. Not the happiest arc, but it makes him grander than most other iterations. Number 2. IDW Comics Slash was a furious but fun snapping turtle cooked in a lab. Now let's get into the 2011 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics, more specifically issues 15 and 16, which are all about Slash's origin. Let's begin with issue 15 of the 2011 comic, though. In the wake of their recent skirmish with the Shredder and the Foot Clan, Splinter has instructed his sons that they must take drastic action to protect themselves from mortal threats. Little did the Turtles know that the dangers will soon surface. That's pretty much the story of the previous issues, while this one here begins some 14 months before the real events. We open at StockGen Research Inc. lab, which, by the way, is also where April works. Two scientists, Chet and Lindsay, are working on Specimen 6, a snapping turtle. Chet injects the creature with a green serum, part of which came from the blood of Hob, who you may know as a TMNT villain. The intent was to finally train the creature to hunt other mutants, especially the Turtles, and their father-come-master Splinter. In just a month, the turtle grows almost twice its size and begins actively hunting prey. It understands the need to hunt and becomes more adept at it. In the next 4 months, Specimen 6 becomes nearly the size of an adult human, and controlling him has become a challenge even for the armed guards stationed at StockGen. In other words, the creature has gotten a huge body and a puny brain, and the science guys at StockGen have no clue how to keep it from tearing the place apart. However, 2 weeks ago, Specimen 6 escaped, the story of which is detailed in the micro-series. There, we've got April O'Neil out driving her van, and of course, that van is full of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. At this point, that's her new normal. She even thinks about how bizarre her life has become, which, yeah, no argument there. Meanwhile, Donatello goes into concern mode. Raph and Mikey, being Raph and Mikey, brush it off though. They're not too worried. April drops them off and heads to StockGen for her internship, and this is where things shift a bit. At work, April reflects on science itself. Earlier, she believed in it as something pure, something good. Now, not so much. She's seen what people like Stockman can do with it, so she starts thinking differently. If she can't fight like the Turtles, maybe she can gather information. Basically, she decides she's going to play spy. So, she steals a co-worker's ID badge, then she overhears Chet Allen, the same guy from earlier, talking about the turtle tracker. The moment he sees her, he tries to change the topic, which, let's be honest, only makes it even more suspicious, so April creates a distraction. Unfortunately, this leads to an electrical short and 3 containment tubes malfunction. While everyone focuses on the mess, April grabs the turtle tracker and slips away, but is forced to hide the tracker at work and plans to return at night to retrieve it properly. Night falls and April heads back to StockGen. She approaches the building dressed as a jogger, then switches into her work clothes and uses the stolen badge to get inside. So far, everything's going according to plan, but hey, this is StockGen. Things don't stay easy for long. Although April retrieves the turtle tracker from where she hid it, before she can leave, one of Krang's stone soldiers notices her. He asks her to stop, and she turns and leaves, trying to lose him in the building. She ends up inside a lab full of genetic experiments, and one of the containment tubes is broken, which means that whatever was inside is no longer inside. April clocks the danger instantly and also grabs a vial of green ooze, probably thinking she can study it later, but then the stone soldier catches up to her. Now she's cornered. But this is where April does what she does best. She manages to outrun the stone soldier, but then something stops him. He also realizes one of the experiments has escaped. He tries to raise an alarm, but before he can do that, the escaped specimen punches him in the face and knocks him out cold. Of course, that lab creature is Slash. With that out of the way, let's get back to TMNT issue number 15. After everything that went down at StockGen, this version of Slash doesn't come off as his previous iterations. Not even close. He roams around New York like a mindless monster, and yeah, people notice him because wherever he goes, property gets damaged, people get hurt, and the name Slash starts floating around because of the claw marks he leaves behind. Those long, clean slashes soon become his signature. He leaves those marks on April's van, which is already pretty beat up, and then goes after Woody Durkins, Mikey's pizza delivery friend. Poor guy gets turtleized and ends up with some mild injuries, but it was a close call, and enough to make it clear that Slash wasn't messing around. At one point, Slash spots the turtles and copies them. He makes himself a torn black bandana, almost like he's trying to belong, or maybe trying to define himself. Hard to say at this stage because his mind isn't exactly stable. He follows the turtles to an abandoned church, which the turtles use as their new base, and once he gets inside the underground bunker, he attacks, and as it usually goes with Slash, the turtles fail to handle him. He overpowers all 4 of them, and when Michelangelo goes down and loses consciousness, Slash prepares to finish him, and you'd think that'd be the end of it. He falls into the sewer system, gets swept away into the river, and the turtles assume he's dead. But of course, we're talking comic books, so unless you see a corpse, there's no way he's really dead. Slash survives and washes ashore, where old Hob finds him. Now, Hob becomes important here. Slash, for whatever reasons, understands that Hob isn't a threat, and from that point on, he follows him, and that's where issue 16 ends. Later, in the City Fall arc, Slash starts to change. Not fully, but you can see it gradually. He develops a strange admiration for Michelangelo, and the reason is actually kind of simple. Mikey gives him a candy bar. That's it, and somehow that really sticks with him. Turns out, if you're a ruthless monster, even a small act of kindness can leave a long-lasting impression. Slash becomes part of the mission to rescue Leonardo from the Foot Clan, and during all of this, he also builds a strong dislike for Hun, whom he calls the Dragon Man. After the mission, Leo gives Slash a proper black mask, something more in line with the turtles, and also a bladed gauntlet. So now, Slash isn't copying them anymore. He's part of something, but unfortunately, this doesn't last for long. Old Hob begins creating more mutants, and he realizes he needs Lindsay Baker's psychotropic compound to do it. Around this time, Slash makes a decision that changes everything. He takes a syringe filled with Splinter's compound-infused blood and says he wants to be a hero like Michelangelo. Mikey, to his credit, tries to stop him. He tells Slash that he himself isn't even a hero, but after that, something clicks, and suddenly, Slash is smarter. He speaks clearly, thinks clearly, and for the first time, you can see some degree of control in him. Actually, not some, a whole lot of control. With this new mindset, he helps co-found the Mutanimals alongside Hob and takes part in their attack on the Foot Clan. Now, another thing happens when Michelangelo briefly joins the Mutanimals. Yep, he does that, and Slash is thrilled. His hero is finally fighting on his side. But then, the truth comes out. Slash discovers that Hob has been stockpiling weapons in a secret warehouse, and worse, he's hired Hun to manage things. That doesn't sit right with Slash, not after everything, and he just walks away. Even though he still cares about the Mutanimals, he cuts ties. So, Mikey offers him a place to stay in the old lair under the church, but Slash refuses. He says he needs to be on his own for a while. Still, he makes it clear that Mikey will always be his hero. Later, during Christmas, Slash reunites with both the Turtles and the Mutanimals. He even brings candy bars, which, yeah, that tracks. But being in his vicinity still scares Woody Durkins, even though Slash isn't hostile anymore. And they don't approach him directly, and now Slash isn't acting on his own anymore. He's a weapon under Agent John Bishop, who sends Slash after the Mutanimals. And Slash attacks them in their own home. This allows the EPF to capture them as well. Later, Bob, the Turtles, and Dark Water manage to free the Mutanimals, but Slash remains under Bishop's control, and it gets worse. You see, Bishop uses Slash against a Triceraton landing party led by Commander Zom, and later, during a battle between the EPF and the Triceratons. Before he leaves, he gives Hob his black bandana and agrees with him about the threat humans pose, and Mikey gives him one last candy bar and a hug. Or at least it should have been, because later, when the Turtles get taken to the Battle Nexus, Savante Romero introduces his champion, and surprise, surprise, it's Slash. The Turtles are shocked. They saw him die, but Romero says it wasn't easy bringing him there, but it also wasn't impossible. He separates Leonardo for a one-on-one fight, but Leo refuses, and the others get locked up and Mikey tries to talk to Slash. No response. Slash stays silent, though he smiles when Mikey jokes about not having a candy bar. Then it's Michelangelo's turn to face him, and he also refuses to fight. Slash attacks anyways and beats him down badly until Romero gets annoyed with Mikey's pacifism, so he's all like,
"Fine. I'll do it myself."
But then Mikey calls Slash his brother, and after Romero dies, they return to their dimension with Alopex, and Slash apologizes to Mikey, who just brushes it off, calling it trauma. Well, that was more or less it for the IDW comics, but if you want a more detailed exploration of this arc, you know where to comment. For now, let's move on. Slash has also appeared in comics like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Amazing Adventures, as well as crossovers from Panini Comics and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but for the sake of this video, we're going to refrain from going into the details there. However, we do want to talk about something more interesting, namely Slash's story in video games. Alright, so when it comes to Slash in video games, this guy moves things around, and he's been doing so for a while, like at least since the 80s. He's appeared across multiple titles, and almost every time, he makes sure you remember him. Usually, not in a good way either, especially if you're the one holding the controller. Let's start with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project on the NES. This is one of his earlier game appearances where he serves as a mini-boss. He jumps off the back of the Turtle Tenderizer, yup, that vehicle, and immediately turns into a problem you need to take care of. He fights with a saber, leaping around the screen and refusing to stay still. And, as if that wasn't enough, he curls into a ball and rolls up and down the screen, which makes it even harder to land a hit on him. So, yeah, if you remember struggling here, you weren't alone. Moving forward, he returns in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time, specifically the SNES version. If you keep pushing, he suddenly switches it up, rolls into a ball, and knocks you flat, so the blocking becomes somewhat important. Also, in both these games, Slash doesn't fully have the cartoon look. He leans more toward the action figure design and original concept. So, along with his swords, he has two twin metal claws attached to bands on his hands. Later on, Slash returned in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Madness, but this time things have changed a bit. He's not a boss here, pace. Then, we've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Here, Slash comes back as a boss in episode 14, titled The Lost Arch Enemies. His design seems closer to the cartoon version this time, though he doesn't have the claws on his hands. Instead, he uses twin swords and even throws giant boulders into the mix. If I had to pick a personal favorite though, we gotta say, we'd have to pick the version of Slash that pops up in the IDW game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutants in Manhattan. Here, he starts off as a boss fight, even though he isn't exactly an enemy. He has a loose alliance with the Turtles, but the moment they get close to his place in the sewer, he attacks them anyways. He tells them that the Foot were there and mentions they had space guns, which, I mean, yeah, sounds about right. Then, he goes off for a nap. Later, the Foot Clan kidnaps him, and he ends up as a hostage under Leatherhead. The Turtles eventually rescue him after defeating Leatherhead, and that wraps up his involvement there. So, overall, whether he's a boss, an ally, or an actual playable character, Slash keeps the same energy, strong, unpredictable, and never easy to deal with. And honestly, that kind of consistency works in his favor. Slash's villain to hero legacy. We think it's been made abundantly clear throughout the video that Slash is like the Hulk of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He may sometimes become as smart as Bruce Banner, or maybe even the Smart Hulk, but he always remains a brute force, a giant that can change the course of any battle. I'll admit, when he started off, he was never really the Machiavellian sort of villain, if you think about it. He was always this, well, brute, who never even wronged anybody to begin with. In each of the versions, he's somehow mutated, and it's no fault of his own, but once the mutation comes into play, there's really not a lot one can do to stop Slash from slashing, and the only person who can truly level with Slash is Slash himself. Thankfully enough, this happens more often than not, but that's all we got for you this time, guys. So if you like this video, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. These 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these lore lockdowns, so stay safe out there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see ya in the next one.